Auditor. I'm joined here today by State Senator Rachel May, and we're here to talk about New York State aid to the city of Syracuse. I'm pleased to say today my office is releasing my first report. I took office January 1st, and our first report comes out today. It's entitled AIM Hire. It's an analysis of the impact of New York State AIM aid on the city of Syracuse. AIM, which is short for Aid and Incentives to Municipalities, is the state aid, is the direct, unrestricted state aid available to cities. AIM was started in 2006 under Governor George Pataki, who promised cities would receive annually increases between 12.5% and 7.5%, depending on various metrics. AIM peaked shortly thereafter at $76 million, but it was cut and then frozen by Governor Cuomo in 2012, and since then it has remained constant at $71 million. Since then, in the last decade plus, the basic cost of running a city has gone up. Our budget has grown 22.7% since AIM was frozen. That's more than $64 million. But that's not profligate spending. That's the basic cost of running a city. Rising costs for materials and equipment and inflation is impacting us. So do state mandates for the rising cost of labor agreements, pension, and healthcare expenses. Just as an example, pensions, a state mandated cost, have risen 35% over in that time period. Our healthcare expenses have risen 12%. There are so many microphones, I can't turn my page. We do need to be a competitive employer and offer our employees good salaries and good benefits, but because of New York State regulations, we don't have a lot of discretion in how we're able to do that. Core city services like police, fire, the Department of Public Works, and water have risen 30% since AIM was frozen. AIM once accounted for nearly 65% of the cost of these services. It is now barely 40% in last year's city budget. So how do we rectify this? I'm proposing several solutions in my report, including tying AIM to a new formula, permanently indexing AIM to inflation, offering one-time spin-up support, or implementing a cost-sharing program for mandated expenses from New York State. I'm pleased to be joined today by State Senator Rachel May, who's offering some help with option one, helping create legislation that puts forward a formula to addresses AIM funding going forward. She's been great to work with on this, and all of our local legislators have regularly fought for increases in AIM aid. Governor Hochul, in her first budget last year and her newest budget proposal, has continued to keep it flat, though I hope with her vast experience as a former town board member and county clerk, she appreciates the issue and will work with legislators like Senator May and our other local legislators to advocate for more. So I just want to close by saying all Syracusans are New Yorkers. We are all of my constituents are Senator May's constituents and Governor Hochul's constituents. And I really hope that New York State's going to be able to come in and support Syracuse's priorities, which are New York State's priorities. And with that, Senator May.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm proud to be here with Alex and his first report. Every year, the first thing we start hearing when the budget season comes along is from municipality after municipality after municipality about the need to increase AIM funding. Everybody is dealing with higher costs. Everybody has to pave roads and keep their city services going or their village services going, and this is squeezing them more and more year after year. So we in the legislature have advocated for increases in AIM every year. So far this is my 6th year in the legislature, the governors have not agreed to increase AIM funding. Last year I proposed a modified version of this formula because I represent Syracuse, I work in Albany. Those are two cities where half or even more than half of the land in the city is off the tax rolls. It's universities and hospitals, it's government buildings, it's highways, it's things that you can't do property taxes on. And so Syracuse and Albany in particular, but many other municipalities around the state are hamstrung in how they can raise money in terms of property taxes. And so they are even that much more dependent on AIM funding. So part of Alex's proposal is to have a formula where the percentage of your land that is off the tax rolls would influence the amount of aid you get. We had some others of how old your infrastructure is, how much, I mean, we know there are still wood pipes under the streets of Syracuse, and how much infrastructure repair you need. And the third one was?
Housing,
That's right. So we want municipalities to get on board with building more housing and more affordable housing, and a lot of them really pushed back last year when the governor tried to put that in her budget, and so we want to use this as an incentive. If you participate in this statewide need, and for us this regional desperate need for more housing, then you could qualify for a bump in your aid funding. So we want to see this done right. We want to see it something where it's a good investment on the part of the state, but we also want to allow our local governments to continue functioning and people to continue having a high quality of life, in whether they live in a rural area or in a city like Syracuse. So I'm proud to be part of this effort with the city auditor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate Senator May and her impressive work. Just as a reminder to everyone, Senator May has a unique perch to talk about this because she's the chairwoman of the New York State Senate Committee on Small Cities. So I really appreciate her advocacy and her work on this, and I look forward to pursuing this further in Albany this year. And to echo what you said, these are three really important points. State-owned and tax-exempt properties, our infrastructure, building more housing. These are priorities for the city of Syracuse and for cities across the state of New York. That's what Buffalo wants, and Rochester, and Syracuse, and Utica, and Binghamton, and Albany. And I could go on and on and on. So, if we can get the support we need for some of these important priorities, that's how we'll be able to continue delivering the important, necessary services to people across the city of Syracuse. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
With your previous position, are you using your connections to work with the legislature on this?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very eager to work with our colleagues in Albany, like Senator May. I've had good discussions already with other members of our local delegation. I actually went to Albany for the governor's state address and met with a number of other members, including some folks who at one time had served as mayors of their municipalities. So I think that this is receiving a warm reception from legislators. We just have to get more and more folks on board to make sure that this is on the governor's radar, so that as we go through the budget process, we need everyone to be a strong voice advocating for this.
So Senator May, have you ever heard in your time in the legislature, heard a reason why the governors have, been opposed to increasing that aid?
They typically don't explain it when there's just flat funding. They have, in my experience, treated that as a gift, that they're not cutting it, they present that as, you should be glad. But in the case of AIM funding, where it is so tied to the expenses of these services, flat funding is a cut. And we're trying to make that case once again to the governor. I will say there is one issue that comes up over and over, which is New York City does not get AIM funding. And so it's hard to get New York City legislators to advocate for this. They don't oppose it, but they would like to see something similar for New York City. So that would be very expensive. So that is an issue, I think. No, I haven't heard a governor say that, but I think that is one of the issues. So we do have to keep doing what I've been doing for my 6 years in the legislature, which is making sure my downstate colleagues really understand the realities of life upstate and the costs that we face in not just, as Alex said, I chair the committee on small and medium cities, but I also chair the Commission on Rural Resources, and a lot of our rural municipalities are really struggling because they have, very few people and a lot of length of their water pipes or their roadways, and so it's, snow removal can be much more complicated there. So we really need to be helpful to them as well.
And Scott, I've got a number I'd like to share with you here. So as I said earlier, since AIM was frozen, the City of Syracuse budget has grown 22%. But when AIM was first introduced, 2006, the New York State budget was $133 billion. The fiscal year 24 budget was $229 billion. And for those not doing math in your head, that is an over 200% increase in the budget. New York State does have money, it does have revenue, and it puts money and revenue behind really important critical projects. I am not here to nitpick how they spend money on different enterprises. I'm here to say that we've seen budgets of New York State increase except for this. We've seen more money go to other programs, but not this. Cities are an important part of the New York State equation, and we need to make sure that when we have money for any host of initiatives, we should be putting money in there for the cities of New York State. Additionally, AIM has been funded statewide. It hovers around $700 million. In the scheme of a $230+ billion budget, that's not a huge number. Even a small increase in that would be significant, and a 2% increase for the city of Syracuse in our AIM aid would yield about $14 to $15 million. That would go a long ways. That would be a little over half of what our structural deficit is. That kind of increase would deliver real results for putting more services on the ground here. And in New York State, we have spent, last year there was $500 million allocated towards the Belmont racetrack and the horse racing industry, which is of economic importance to Long Island. I understand that. A couple $1 million more added to AIM in the context of a budget of this size, I believe, is certainly doable.
Could you talk a little bit more about kind of expanding, I don't know if expanding is the right word, but when you look at the role of like the city auditor of Syracuse, you think the city of Syracuse, and it sounds like in this report and your future goals, it's not going to just be city of Syracuse only, or city of Syracuse specific. That makes sense.
Yes, it does. So I view this role very expansively. Syracuse is not on an island. We do not have the luxury of saying our problems are only our problems, our opportunities are only our opportunities. We need to look beyond the four walls of City Hall at how we fit into the bigger universe. We are often at the mercy of policy decisions that come out of Albany and Washington. We're at the mercy of economic trends happening out there in the private sector. I think it's very important that we have a city auditor, and I hope to accomplish this in my time in office, who's able to put their work in the context of the world in which we live. And talking about the aid we get from Albany and Washington, I think is a very important way that we can do that. Because when we get more aid from Albany, then we can say, okay, we can put that money to support housing construction. We can put that money towards hiring a new class of police officers. We can put that money towards replacing water mains or plowing streets, or important capital projects in our parks. So the fact that we are not alone in this world is incredibly important, and I think that we need to make sure that we are, reflective of the world that surrounds us here. Anyone else? Anything? All right, we're good. Debbie from my team has copies of the report for everyone if you need some leisure reading. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, everyone.